Progress.
Hi, my dear Astro family. So here is the monthly forecast for 2024 May. We've got quite a big month ahead of us again because Pluto is going to go retrograde, as well as Jupiter is moving into the sign of Gemini. So we've got a few bits and bobs to cover. So the first up is actually going to be Pluto going retrograde. So we will do exactly the same format like we did before. So we're going to be looking at any type of retrogression, any planetary sign change, and we're going to cover a little bit on the nations, and then we're going to be looking at probably the best and the most difficult aspects of the month. So the first up is Pluto going retrograde. That's going to be happening on the 2nd of May. Now, Pluto has been in the sign of Aquarius for a little while now. And what it wanted us to do is to look at our group settings. Maybe to look at, who our friends are. What is our belief system? What is our group ideology overall? And now when Pluto is moving retrograde, we're going to have to look at whether somehow we can realign with those group of people from our past, as well as with people who are currently with. Now, I would like to mention that most likely not everyone is going to feel Pluto retrograde. And the reason being is because it is a slow-moving planet. It is more to do with generations rather than a personal influence. However, if you've got any planets on 1 or 2 degrees of the fixed signs, which are Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, or Scorpio, then you will feel it in your personal sphere as well. So sometimes the Pluto retrograde is going to go about how to actually align with a group. What type of efforts do they make? Do they serve your needs? But also somehow whatever you learned about people in the last 7-8 months, for example, or actually almost the last 1 year, pretty much, even though Pluto shifted back once into the sign of Capricorn, it will want you to look at your current and your old viewpoints. It is about maybe revisiting your own ideology as well. Now, if we start looking at the world, what happened, AI started kicking off pretty much. So maybe what is your relationship to AI? Are you more resistant towards it, or are you going to be embracing into your life? Do you allow AI, for example, to take over your life, or are you going to be integrated that somehow so that you can have that wealth and power that typically comes with Pluto? So, of course, what I feel like is that in modern times, we are so reliant on technology. So maybe this is also something that we need to be relooking at with this Pluto retrograde. A little bit of a cleansing from technology, a little bit of a cleansing from people as well. But also Aquarius can represent such things as skyscrapers and, these modern smart houses and modern big cities and so forth. So some of you might be actually thinking about, okay, is it something I want? Do I want to be in the buzz, or do I need to be a little bit more withdrawn? Now, Pluto will be going back into the sign of Capricorn eventually, and that's going to be happening, just to give you the dates. I mean, Pluto is going to go stationary direct on October 11th, 2024. That's going to be happening on 29 degree, 38 minutes of Capricorn. And Pluto will be leaving the shadow zone around 2nd of February, 2025, and that's going to be happening on 2 degree of Aquarius. So this is a longer period of time. Now, people tend to be afraid of these retrogradations, but remember, the outer planets retrogradation lasts for about 5 to 6 months. So half of the year, they are retrograde. Okay, so this is one topic that might be coming up with Pluto. Of course, there is going to be some major topics, for example, in the political world as well, because Aquarius can represent such thing too. So maybe we're going to be revisiting some of our steps, what happened in the society, or it could also indicate that you are experiencing slight mishaps or headaches kind of in the world as well. And we need to be reevaluating our own steps. Remember that Pluto is the god of the underworld. So often some of the secrets that have come out, we are trying to kind of hide it again with Pluto retrograde, because what happens is that the little scorpion is going backwards. So it's retracing the steps. Let me just go back into the darkness. Or certain type of things that has come out in your life actually can calm down as well. Pluto, by the way, takes approximately 248 years to walk around the zodiacal circles. So namely to be in all the 12 signs at the same time. And often, when Pluto is moving backwards, we are so slow. So imagine that there is a huge technological advancement ahead of us, and then Pluto in the sign of Aquarius will kind of slow that down now. Typically, the slowliness is coming also when Mercury is retrograde as well at the same time. But Pluto is also about healing as well. So this is about revisiting your inner shadows, your inner demons, looking at what type of toxic situations you are in, or what type of toxic beliefs and patterns you have been repeating. This is the planet that is connected to the deep-rooted psychological and emotional wounds. So you have to feel empowered to be able to deal with those. The Pluto retrograde is kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes. So the start of the Pluto retrograde is very much about burning everything down around you, allowing yourself to go through a rebirth process in the next, let's say, 7-8 months, so that from 2nd of February onwards, we can actually feel empowered and going towards the lights. So that's our first stop. Now, the second stop is, okay, let me just quickly have a look at my notes. The second one is going to be Venus changing sign. Oh, sorry, Mercury is going into the sign of Taurus. And that is going to be happening on the 15th or 16th of May. Now, let me just say that very quickly, that the Taurus cusp of your chart is going to be extremely busy this month. So I would recommend to rethink about your Taurian cusp of your chart a little bit more. Now, Mercury is the planet of thinking. It has been in the sign of Aries. It was a good 2.5 months due to its retrograde motion. And now going into the sign of Taurus, things are going to be a little bit slowed down. We might be thinking a lot more about peace, for example. We might start thinking a little bit more about our finances, as well as how to build up ourselves again. So this is going to be probably one of the major topics. But let me just talk about Mercury in Taurus a little bit more. Technically, Mercury is pretty neutral in the sign of Taurus. Remember that Taurus is the sign or the exalted position of the moon. So often what we start doing here is we start thinking about our memories. We start thinking about ideal homes, for example. We start thinking about how the past was, and we want to be working towards that. Now, Mercury is typically a fast-moving planet, and Taurus is a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow, and often stubborn as well. So maybe we need to start thinking about how to actually not getting stuck somehow in our mind, because that could be happening here. Kind of like Mercury in the sign of Taurus is over-structured mind, repeating ideas. Often we are stubborn about our ideas. We're resisting something new. And we kind of feel like that, you know what, this has been used before, so I'm not going to use it myself because I do not want to be a copycat. But also Taurus represents your senses. So actually you can have heightened senses when it comes to the smell or touch and so forth. And pretty much this is about focusing on something that truly matters. With Taurus, which is about pleasure, a little bit of a fun, we might start thinking about, you know what, I want to be on a vacation, for example. Taurus is not necessarily about luxuries. This is more about convenience, I would say. So we want to be making our life a little bit more comfortable, and we might start thinking about that. Taurus with Mercury is not necessarily into these small talks either. This is more down to earth way of thinking, more of a realist, really. And let's get straight to the point. Sometimes Mercury in Taurus is a little bit boring, a little bit kind of like dryish humor or no sense of humor at all. So we just want to be kind of, you know, at the spa, for example, thinking about pampering ourselves and so forth. And from a planning point of view, this is all about planning something carefully. This is not a risk-taking position. This is not necessarily about, I want to be starting a new project. Or even if I want to start a new project, then I'm going to do that slowly. I'm going to plan everything out. But the good thing about Mercury here is that it kind of never gives up on that either. So I like that. By the way, Mercury in Taurus can give brilliant business or management skills and senses as well. And they have got really, really good memory as well. So it could talk to you about some of your memories are going to get stirred up here, especially when Mercury is going to be meeting Uranus, but that's just going to be at the end of the month. Okay, so then we've got the next stop, which is the Sun making its yearly entry into the sign of Gemini. That's going to be happening on the 20th of May. Now, Gemini, what is Gemini? I mean, Gemini is all about thinking and connecting and something to do with communication. Now, remember that Gemini is going to be, the Sun is going to be disposed by Mercury, and Mercury will be almost in the entire month in the sign of Taurus. So when it comes to making connections, this is still a little bit slower. This is still something more to do with, you know what, do I need to make that connection? Do I need to sell something? Gemini is all about thinking, and Taurus is pretty much making money. So many of us will start thinking about money, how the cost of living is affecting us. Most likely, this is going to be a big topic coming up because we will talk about the lunations very briefly. But the upcoming lunation will have a trine to Ceres, which is the asteroid of agriculture and food industry. So there's going to be a lot of talk about, anything to do with food, the environment, pollution, the protection of the earth, and so forth. It could actually, the upcoming lunation, which is happening on 18 degree of Taurus, will highlight significantly Jupiter and Uranus conjunction, which could show us an industrial revolution, for example, in the food industry. So Sun is moving into the sign of Gemini. Gemini is a very much a mutable sign. So sometimes mutability indicates that we can be all over the place, or we are ready to be shifting from one place into another. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because when you feel stuck, then Sun in Gemini can actually help you to move forward because the Sun represents something to do with your future. Now, the little problem here is that Mercury is still in the sign of Taurus, which slows things down. But I think it's a balance as well at the same time, because Gemini would run into a situation and Mercury in Taurus says, you know what, let's think twice. So it's a little bit more cautious. But it's always worth looking at the shift of the sun between the signs. So it's moving from Taurus into Gemini. And the reason why you need to be looking at what was going on in the sign of Taurus, because how you dealt with is going to be affecting the Gemini cusp of your chart as well. So with Taurus into Gemini, it's very much about helping to sell your accumulated goods. This could be a brilliant time for that. Or it realizes that something is missing. So in the sign of Taurus, we collected items. And in the sign of Gemini, we realize that there is a little piece missing there. So let me do a little bit of a research around it. It is all about delivering a message that is not partial. I mean, Gemini is the very first dual sign, so represents duality, the two sides of the coin as well, or overall it could be pretty multi-layered too. So this might be about looking at my financial situation or my self-worth, net worth from multiple angle. In the sign of Taurus, we might have looked at it just, on a surface level. And with a Gemini, it's not necessarily going extremely deep. That would be happening in the sign of Scorpio, but I'm going to be looking at from here and there and so forth. So what I can see, and maybe I'm even going to get others involved into this situation as well, so they can give me feedback on that. Gemini also collects, while Taurus is collecting personal items, for example, Gemini collects information. So because that's the second sign from Taurus. So you might end up buying some courses, and then, I would recommend just slow down a little bit with that. You might want to buy one or two. We don't need to go overboard with it, because you might not be able to find time to actually listen to those. Gemini is a little bit like the bee, the busy bee, and what the bees does, they delivers the pollens onto the flowers. So it is also about something to do with a creation of a product as well. This is about not being in a closed environment. This is about being interested in something, and because the dispositor is in the sign of Taurus, being interested in self-worth, net worth, finances, as well as self-love. I personally like a Gemini period, because it's brilliant time to make connections with others, not necessarily on a deep emotional level. This is more about the fun side of it. Of course, Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system, and it is the closest to the sun as well. Mercury takes approximately about 88 days to complete one revolution in its own orbit. So therefore, it means that Mercury never goes too far away from the sun, though. So therefore, when you are looking at your sun sign, always integrate that with Mercury as well, because Mercury is the messenger of the sun. It's the number one ally in a way. So Sun in Gemini, but having Mercury in Taurus or having Mercury in Cancer is going to be significantly changing the sun's meaning in your chart. So just a little bit of a tip there. Now, each sign has got something to learn from someone else. So one of the, look at where the Gemini cusp is in your chart. The sun is going to highlight that area of life for you, where to be flexible, where to be a little bit more curious, where to be more explorative, where you need to have a lot of information before you make a decision, and what area of life you might talk the most about, or what area of life you need to talk a little bit more about. And in regards to that house, you need to be making certain type of connections as well. You might start questioning how important social media is for me. The reason why, because even though Sun is moving into the sign of Gemini, previously it highlighted the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Mercury will highlight it as well. And of course, we've got the upcoming lunation also highlighting it. So social media could be a big topic. Or how much do I depend on other people's opinion? Do I build relationships and how those connections going? Do I have a business mindset with Mercury being in the sign of Taurus, along with the sun in Gemini? And are you able to sell yourself? Okay, so the next stop is going to be Venus moving into the sign of Gemini. Now that's going to be happening on the 23rd of May. Well, this is a very light-hearted position. This is pretty much about the love of chat, the love of making connections, the love of flirting as well. So if someone is single, how I would utilize this period of time is that I would start making some type of connections. That would be the whole idea here. Because the more connections you make, the more lighthearted you are, the better the chance is that actually you are going to be able to find someone. Do I have issue with Mercury in Venus in Gemini? Not really, because it has got that quick wit with it. This is about, yes, the love of talking. Sometimes it can go into gossiping as well, though. Or sometimes we love talking about ourselves, not necessarily listening. And as I said, Gemini's communication skills sometimes a little bit more on the superficial side. But when it comes to selling something, that's also brilliant with Venus in Gemini, because you can be very talented at communication. You can be very persuasive with this as well. This is about asking questions. This is about becoming a social butterfly. And this is also about just light-hearted relationships, loving to be around people. We might be very creative when it comes to ideas as well. It brings a lot of excitement into a relationship. It's great to write. It's great to be flirtatious. Not the bestest when it comes to keeping secrets, for example, or not the bestest to keep a guy or a girl around either. Just because Venus in Gemini often have got a little bit more curiosity towards a couple of people. And we might not be able to know which one to choose. And that's a Mercurian topic as well in our life. But if we have got a possessive partner, for example, why am I talking about that? Because the dispositor of Sun and Venus, Mercury, is still in the sign of Taurus. So if the partner is possessive, Venus is actually running away from it. Venus here loves to travel, for example. And travel industry, interestingly enough, is very heightened in the next 1.5 years. 1.5 months. Because Sun, Venus in the sign of Gemini, and pretty much the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is featured as well. And Jupiter and Uranus is the air industry, pretty much. So it's kind of like how we are landing, how we are taking off. I feel like there could be some delays there. Okay, so that's the Venus in Gemini, to use it in the bestest way. And last but not least, we're going to have Jupiter moving into the sign of Gemini. Now, I'm not going to talk about this in length because I have already made a video about it and I have already broken down this constellation for all 12 signs as well. But I'm going to be doing a revisited version of this video probably in a couple of weeks' time. And that's going to be giving you an updated view on how the Jupiter in Gemini might be working out. But a couple of things I'd like to mention. And let's focus on the positive ones. First of all, Jupiter in Gemini, technically speaking, is a little bit more on the difficult side because it has got a detrimental position. But let's focus on the positives. It's about endless curiosity. And I feel like when someone is an opportunist, and Jupiter in Gemini can be an opportunist, then that's already a recipe for half a success. The little trouble with this, though, that we not always see the entire truth with Jupiter in the sign of Gemini, but we are looking for alternative possibilities. So problem solving could be a great one. Now, remember, Jupiter will be spending a year in the sign of Gemini. So this is going to be really emphasizing the Gemini cusp of your chart, and it wants to expand it no matter what. Just we need to be approaching this a little bit more with caution. This can make someone a great conversationalist. This is about training your mind, learning a lot about mind, and how you can benefit from being social. How good you can become once you express your thoughts about the Gemini cusp in your chart. It's about learning to communicate your insights, learning to communicate your opinions to others. We tend to be accumulating information with Jupiter here. But often we don't share it because we become an eternal student. So you're going to have to study as well as share your knowledge with others. This could indicate that you easily get bored though. Somehow when something doesn't pick your interest, then we might just end up giving up and then walking away. And there is a little bit of an attention deficit coming with this position as well. So we can become scattered. It will be very important to ground yourself, to look at the details slightly bit, but not getting stuck with the details. So learn to focus on one or maximum two goals with this. But also it can indicate that your knowledge is going to be improving significantly. Negatively speaking, it can indicate that your mind is going to be racing quite a lot as well. You might end up studying a new language, for example, or you might be reading a lot more, or you might be making promising to yourself. However, to keep those promises might not be the easiest one with Jupiter in the sign of Gemini. Maybe it's about reading about history a little bit, or reading more about philosophy and spirituality as well. So there could be an element of self-development going through, learning about how to sell yourself. Again, remember that the dispositor is still in the sign of Taurus. So selling yourself, knowing a lot more about your self-worth, knowing how to study, and study, for example, at a, balanced pace will be very important here. Not too slow, not too fast. So guys, this was the planets on the move section. Let's look at the lunations. We're going to have a new moon happening in the sign of Taurus, and that is on 7th or 8th of May, depending on where you are. Now, I am making a well-rounded video about this. So here, I'm just going to be giving you some highlights. This is happening on 18 degree of Taurus. So it's highlighting the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. It's pretty much something like the Jupiter and Uranus is going to get blunted in a way. Now, what I would briefly say about it, I mean, a Taurus. So remember, we've got 5 planets in the sign of Taurus at the time of the lunation. So we've got Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Uranus, Sun, and the Moon. So it's huge. So this would talk to you about having to find that inner peace within yourself. It's about looking at your safety, how secure you feel in your own skin, whether you are ready to make a change in your life or you are too stubborn and getting stuck in the mud. Because the problem here is that we're going to have Mercury here very briefly. We're going to have Jupiter and Uranus, which want to speed things up. But Taurus is really about resistance. So you're going to have to find the balance, not to get too stuck, but not to rush ahead as well. And otherwise, I feel like Jupiter and Uranus might be forcing you to make a change. And when you are forced, it can be painful. This might be telling you to look at what you are obsessed with, how much you receive, and how much you give to others, what your current financial situation is. You might want to start thinking about that as well. And something in the Taurian cusp of your chart need a shook up. But most importantly, Taurus is about self-love, a little bit more on the luxurious side. This is about food and diet. This is about enjoying the little things in life, such as I'm going to be tasting the food, or I'm going to be looking at butterflies, how they are roaming around, and I find beauty in it. Implementing a little bit of a luxury into your life, tiny ones. So such as I'm going to do self-pampering, self-caring, I'm going to go for a massage. And some of you will be looking at loyalty of people as well. And then we've got the other lunation, which is actually a really abundant one. I will love talking about that when I'm breaking it down for you. It only has got one aspect, major aspect really, but I'm going to be introducing some really cool asteroids in that particular video. So it's going to be the Sagittarius full moon, 23rd of May. It's going to be happening on 2 degrees of Sagittarius. And it's Pluto who is going to be highlighting this full moon. So this is about, and the dispositor of this lunation, Jupiter, is actually conjuncting Venus as well. So this is full-on abundant Sagittarius full moon. It has got a lot of potentials. It has got a lot of potentials to make great money. Probably we're going to see some really great financial situations here. But what's very interesting about the Sagittarius full moon is that it's kind of like disconnected from the rest of the chart, apart from Pluto. Because when you start looking at what is happening, we've got a lot of Taurian energy, for example, in our chart at the moment. And Taurus and Sagittarius are not necessarily making connections, really. Then we've got still a little bit of an Aries energy left, but Mars is not making an aspect. And then we've got still Saturn and Neptune. Neptune is actually on anaretic degree almost the entire month in 2024 May. I will be making a video about that shortly, because that's a very pivotal moment. But no one is really making an aspect to it. The only one who is, that's Pluto, which is a retrograde. So what we said about Pluto retrograde, that we're going to have to look at a deeper, a closer look at, you know, what type of people we are together with, for example, who are our friends. And the Sagittarius full moon is all about being motivated and an adrenaline rush, and who I am experiencing certain type of things. So that could be a topic here. What do you want to experience with others? Who do you want to share certain type of memories with? Such as, who am I going on holiday with? Do I actually want to go on holiday with this particular person or not? But the fact that the dispositor, Jupiter, conjunct Venus in the sign of Taurus, is about having a good time, going on a holiday, enjoying the nice and fine things of life. So this is about being optimistic about humanity as well, in a way. Being optimistic about that there is still a chance to save the earth, for example. I love this full moon. I think this is the best one we have had for a very long time. Yes, of course, this could talk to you about having to look at your belief system as well. And with that Pluto, it's time to actually revisit our belief systems and change it somehow. Remember, a full moon is a time of culmination, fulfillment, which usually starts with the new moon, where we planted the seeds. So, and now we're gonna have to start thinking about how to fertilize those seeds so that they can grow and blossom. So we need to be aware of what is missing in our life. We need to learn a little bit more. We need to go on an adventure. We need to go on a travel to figure something out. And maybe we need to be sharing our experiences with others as well. So we have got the mental axis of our chart getting quite triggered here. And Gemini is very much about our thinking cap, the lower mind, while Sagittarius is more to do with the higher mind. So there needs to be an element of balance between our logical mind as well as our intuitive mind, where we are able to see things, the world, in a broader perspective. This is about starting to think about to find the inner meaning of your existence. I think with the Pluto sextile to it. This is very much about how to share your ideas with others, how to communicate your belief systems with others, what type of an attitude do I need to portray. And pretty much there could be a little bit of a battle between your logic and the intuitive sense. And Pluto wants you to listen now to your intuitive self because it's retrograde. So it's about going within. So listening to our gut feelings. And that's going to be very important with this. By the way, this full moon, it has got an out of sign aspect to Neptune as well, if in case someone is looking at that. I wouldn't. But I think Jupiter and the Venus conjunction should bring many people a certain type of luck, inspiration. It gives you the ability to see an opportunity, to capitalize on the opportunity, and in a way, making something, starting to build up something. So it's a new start. Great. Now let's have a look at some of the one challenging aspect and one positive aspect of this month. Now, one of the most interesting aspect of the month, in my opinion, is the Mars North Node conjunction, which is going to be happening on the 19th or 20th of May, depending on where you are. It can really go different ways. I would like to mention it really depends on how you use that Mars. It's going to be happening in the sign of Aries, of course. And whatever North Node does, it always amplifies. So we need to remember that. So it can amplify your energy. You can become a lot more ambitious. It can give you a lot more courage. It can push you to be more determined to achieve something. Or you can run into someone who is going to challenge you, who is going to question your power, who can stir up things when it comes to your relationships, really, because Mars conjuncting North Node means that it is opposing the South Node as well. So it could really go, as I said, two ways. It could be really positive and really negative as well. Because if Mars is focusing a little bit more on the South Node, then that would be bringing us certain things such as disagreements, arguments. We don't see eye to eye. Everyone is trying to prove their own point. So imagine that there is kind of like a peace talk going on, and both parties are just so focused on their own ideas and opinions that they don't want to listen. And obviously that can cause more friction. So that's one thing you might want to be very cautious about. But obviously, we're talking about a good 1.5 year cycle here. So this is about advancements on your path as well. So when you just focus on wanting to achieve something with this, then this could be a brilliant time for that. This is about sometimes being restless to make those changes in your life as well. Sometimes we feel so restless that we just step on the gas pedal because it's Aries and North Node amplifies that, and then driving that car 150 miles an hour to get there faster. But at the same time, we forget to enjoy the process, which is very much about the Libra element, right? That's a Venusian sign. And sometimes we need to enjoy how we get there. It's not about just getting married, but obviously that road to the altar needs to be just as pleasant experience as the wedding day itself. So I feel like this Mars and North Node conjunction is going to try to teach us to be patient, to look at the timing, to be at the right place at the right time. It's about increasing your own strength and power. It's about finding your purpose. It's about prompting you to be ready for the change so that you don't have the sudden surprises popping into your life. And that's why it's important that you use the South Node in the sign of Libra as well, which would pretty much about let's negotiate, let's talk about it, let's not come to a conclusion, let's not judge others, let's make the judgment together. Let's see if we can be stronger together than us separately. Of course, if you have done that too much, like you are a strong Libra person, for example, then this Mars North Node is really encouraging you to tap into your own power. So it's about balance, it's about fairness, not giving up one identity for the benefit of the other. It's about, you know what, we are in it together. When we are smelling the roses, let's smell it together. When we are in a pickled situation, you know what, let's climb out of it together as well. So yes, we need to see the true strength. We need to have that willpower. We're going to have to work on that. We're going to have to focus on your higher goals. As I said, it could go really wrong, especially when, oh, sorry, I'm meant to be getting up, but I'm already up for a couple of hours. I forgot to switch off my alarm. So it can go really, you know, if the past experiences are haunting us, if we are angry at someone or angry at yourself, this is going to come in the way. So this would talk to you about finding harmony as well between the past and the future also. But Mars connecting to the South Node can bring forward some of your talents and abilities as well from the past that you did not necessarily, you haven't used for a while. Or it is not about getting into conflict with others, but more about talk it through. This could also talk to you about, you know, rediscovering your motivation. Let's face the challenges from the past, because the South Node is a little bit the shades of, you know, the shades on the future. So I cannot see things completely clearly. Okay, and so that's an aspect which is a little bit both good and bad as well at the same time. So I think what we need to be working on with that Mars and North Node is to remove blockages from our life and to find that motivation factor again, and then let's be ready to face challenges. Okay, and I've spoken already about the Jupiter and Venus conjunction, which I'm also going to be making a separate video about, but I thought I'm really happy to see also that we've got a Saturn and Venus sextile going on as well this month, which could really talk to us about solidifying our relationship, solidifying our finances, putting a little bit of a break onto our finances as well, slowing down, making very smart investments. Actually, that Saturn might be helping us to build our net worth and self-worth, our confidence level. Now, remember that Saturn is still in the sign of Pisces, so often it wants to block out some of these subconscious fears. And therefore, this aspect actually can help you. So, guys, this is the monthly overview of May. I hope it helps, and I will see you with the breakdowns. If you want to get weekly updates of each of the aspects, then you might want to consider joining my YouTube family. You just have to be pressing the join the community button, and then you pay a little bit of a fee, and then you're going to be getting breakdowns of each of the aspects, some weekly specials, and so on. So I hope to see you there. Have a good one. Bye-bye.